Chew, stop it. Stop. Stop. On cue, dog barking. Stop it, Chew, come here. Of course, as I start my live stream, there's some stuff going on outside, and my dog's about to bark. Anyway, I'm here live. Haven't done this in a while. Good to be back here live, guys. Don't worry, my dog's got a little bit of asthma if you hear him barking in the background. But this is a brand new series I'm excited to try. I'll start it as a live stream. We'll see if it'll work as one-off episodes, or not one-off, but as a series of episodes where I basically introduce to you a photo story that I did from my career as a photojournalist and travel photographer and assignment photographer. I'll go through some of the images. I'll give you some tips along the way. I'll share some technical stuff with you, what cameras I shot with, any sort of hurdles I had to jump over to get these shots. For those of you that are new here, thank you for joining. My name is Justin Mott. My channel is dedicated to all things photography from the perspective of a full-time working professional photographer. I also do gear reviews, bag reviews, travel gear and stuff like that, but a lot of it's coming from like the perspective of a professional photographer, giving you guys tips along the way, how to improve your photography, open to pros, amateurs, kind of all that stuff. A couple little housekeeping things here just to update you guys on a few things. My workshop is still open. I've got a few slots left for my Northern Vietnam photography workshop. It is going to be epic. There's a few slots left. We have 10 in total. I think there's like 4 left. Takes place in March here in Hanoi and in Sapa. You can book now. Everything's on my website at justinmott.com. Just go to the workshop page or the online store and you can book it there. It's $3,000. That includes everything once you get here, lodging, food, all that stuff. You just have to get here, pay for that. Everything else we'll take care of, besides booze and just like, excessive spending and things like that. This was a little bit impromptu, so I might not have a lot of people on here, but if you aren't watching live, you can also ask me questions in the comments section. If you are a member of my channel, I'll be doing these more often, specifically for members only. I'll do some for non-members as well, but to be a member costs $4.99 a month, and you will get exclusive content like this, but you also get priority in the comments section. So if you ask me a question live while I'm doing my live stream today, I'll answer your questions first because it shows me a little logo next to you if you're a member. And again, $4.99 a month helps support the channel, helps support me doing things like this. Other things to talk about, let's see, just housekeeping, just funny because someone actually is cleaning my house right now. Just things going on in my life right now. Got a new dog here, trying out for a week, fostering a dog named Bop. You can see him on my YouTube shorts. I'm doing a little series about him. We'll see if we're going to adopt him or not, see how he gets along with my other 2 dogs so far. We love him, but tough to get along with my other dog, Chew, who's a little bit bananas. Anyway, enough about that. I've also signed up for an Ironman, not a full Ironman. It's a full Ironman, but I'll just be doing the relay. So that's stuff going on in my life, training for that kind of stuff, trying to get healthy for the new year. That'll take place in May. A few little things that'll be coming out soon, review things. A lot of you asked me about like my camera strap, what I use in my old Leica system. I used to have this like Barton strap. It was like a braided leather strap. I've kind of ditched those, and my friends over at Wotencraft just sort of came out, they just came out with a bunch of new straps. They sent me about a month ago. I've been testing them out, feeling them out, playing with them, loving them. They have these leather straps here, 1 piece of leather. They're fantastic. Anyway, you can go to wotencraft.com, check these out. They're kind of awesome for Leica shooters or rangefinder shooters, anyone that cares about like kind of style and comfort, but also craftsmanship. They're made like amazing, and they have these like, what do you call it? They have these like I don't know, they're like tapered edges here so it doesn't scratch your neck, which I really like. Come in all sorts of different colors. I got the sort of tanned one here. They also make these wrist straps that are great for you, like wrist strap people out there. I'm not a wrist strap person for my Leica setup, but I'm a wrist strap person for my Ricoh setup. So they make this little canvas one here if you're a canvas person. And the big thing is they have the traditional O-rings if you want, but they also have these Peak Design quick anchor links, which I really dig because sometimes I'm packing my stuff up really quickly and I want to take these off and on really quickly, and those like other ones you got to stick your nails in. Anyway, big hassle. I'll be doing a full review about these camera straps. Might not sound sexy, you guys, but camera straps, I think, if you're into like your cameras and lenses and stuff like that, it's not like on that level of sexy, but it's still pretty sexy. If someone could just give me an update here. Hi, Daniel from Sacramento. Just make sure the sound is all right, everything's coming through fine, because I haven't done a live stream in about a month. I've got a slightly different setup here. Not too bad, but I just haven't connected things in a while, but just making sure the audio sounds good, videos coming through good, all that kind of stuff. So just give me a thumbs up in the comment section if that is the case. If there's any problems, let me know. All right, so sorry, I took a long time to get to it. That's kind of my thing. I sort of ramble and talk about stuff and blah, blah, blah. Let's show you pictures now. Let's dig up some pictures. Let's make sure this is going to show right on my screen here. I just did I think it's on a little bit of delay here. which is a bummer, but okay. So now I'm going to show you images from this assignment, a little background about this assignment. I had to photograph. I mean, what an awesome assignment. I got an email. This was like 2000. Let's dig it up. Oh my God, I should know this, but this, I think, was 2016? 2016 in March. The assignment was in Ho Chi Minh City. I live in Hanoi. It was from the New York Times style section, New York Times style magazine, which is sort of like a part of the New York Times. As those of you who follow me for a long time, you know I do a ton of assignments for the New York Times. And this was a cool assignment. When someone emails you and says, hey, do you want to go photograph chocolate? You're like, yeah, I photographed a lot of horrible, depressing stuff in my career, and this was one of the more fun assignments I've ever done, so I wanted to share it with you. So the assignment was to fly down there, meet these two guys. They're, a little background about them. They met, they own a chocolate factory in Vietnam. They source all their cacao, which is pretty heavily grown here in Vietnam. They noticed, like, hey, there's no chocolate companies in Vietnam, like for Vietnamese, like sold in Vietnam, and the cacao is grown here in Vietnam. And they were kind of thinking, like, why? And these guys were actually met in like an adventure travel expedition together, and they had no experience making chocolate, but they thought it'd be kind of cool to do this, and they did it. It's kind of a cool story just to have this idea that came together. Sad story is one of the founders, Sam, has passed away during COVID, and it was quite sad. He was quite young and had a family, and he was a very lovely person here. Sam is here on the right, and these guys both had French heritage, and Sam had Japanese heritage and French, and Vincent American and French. And anyway, they met on this tour, started this company, success story. I mean, to this day, now, 2023, I still eat their chocolate. I've got some of their chocolate in my fridge. They were fantastic guys. They've got coffee shops all throughout Hanoi and Saigon, maybe in Da Nang too, coming soon, or if they don't already. Anyway, it was a beautiful story. So my assignment was for the magazine to go out there. The writer had already gone, done the story. I got a brief, what the editor wanted. My editor was pretty loose with me, even though I hadn't worked with that particular editor before. But the editor was like, listen, just tell the story about the factory. I can give you, I think it was 4 days to shoot the story. So flew down there, got in one day, shot the next day, and and we basically had to do, I wanted to get a variety of things. So I said, can you guys take me out to some of the cacao fields, which are several hours out into the countryside, out in the Mekong Delta area. And we'll go on an adventure there. I'll photograph you guys along the way while you're visiting some of the places you source your cacao beans from, show me the process. And then if I could get some shots back at the factory itself and see that process, and then some of the chocolate, the finished product, and that kind of stuff. So that was my sense of like how I wanted to tell this story, sort of like the way they're doing it, like bean to home. So I wanted to do, does that make sense? Anyway, probably doesn't make sense, but I'm going off the cuff here. I'm going live. I'm doing it on the fly here. I'm gonna have a sip of coffee. So 4 days on assignment, I delivered, I delivered 186 images. That was quite a bit, but it was such a variety of shots. I can see, looking back, I could have been a better editor of my own work. I sort of give too many images of the same scene too often, but you just never know what different editors are working with. So I find if I work with the same editor, I'm a better editor because I know what they like, so I can cut down my work quite drastically. But if it's a new editor or new magazine or new publication I've never worked for, or even a new type of story, I tend to be a little bit looser to give them more options. Now, some editors like that, some don't. It really depends. Some of it feels like you're giving them more work, and some of it, if it's enough variety, they'll say like, yeah, like great. You know, like they're happy to have it because it gives them more to choose from. Because you never know how the layout's going to work. You never know what kind of spacing they're going to give you. At the end of this episode, I'll show you the final layout they gave online, but I don't have the layout they gave in the magazine, which was actually a lot more impressive. So I sent 186 images, which you can see a variety here. I'm scrolling through. Let's see if that shows up the right way. Yeah, and so I wanted a mix, like I said, I wanted a mix of the farm. I wanted a mix of the adventure out to the farms. I wanted, that journey had this really cool Jeep that they sort of like built up. And rescued because the Jeep was like kind of falling apart. It's not a Jeep, it's like some cool name for a car. I don't know what it is, but I forgot it. But I thought that would give me a nice variety out there, because if I just shot in their factory, you're just limited to like indoor, bad lighting, not the greatest scenario for great visuals. So I always try to put myself in the best possible situation for good visuals. So, sometimes that means pushing people to do stuff they don't necessarily want to do. If they didn't want to come with me, that was going to be a little tricky, but I was still going to go out there and try to do it. Again, that's like the first thing I'm going to do. So first thing for any assignment is to plan properly. So I'm going to plan properly and put myself in the best possible situation. So I said, let's go out there. I think we went out there for the day and came back the same day, or we might have stayed overnight. I can't even remember. It was so long ago. As far as gear that I use, let's see. I don't even remember. I'm going to pull it up right now. I shot with a Canon, let's see, 5D Mark III. It looks like I shot a lot with my Fix 24 and my Fix 35. Back then, my kit was very simple. I think I used a Canon 5D Mark II, a Fix 24, a Fix 35, and a Fix 85, and that's it. I think I also had a backup 5D Mark III as well, and 5D Mark II. I can't remember, but I always had a backup camera on big assignments, especially in remote places, because I don't like to shoot with two bodies at the same time, but if something goes wrong, I do need a backup camera because I'm getting paid as a professional assignment. I'm going to take a moment here and just pause and see if you guys have any questions before I dive into some of the photos here. Let's see. Okay, sound is great. Thank you, Daniel. That's all I needed to hear. All right, so as you can see, I kind of sequenced this in the order of sort of the journey, so the editor could kind of see that. This isn't the final story. Obviously, this is a lot, but I'm just going to pick out some of the shots and kind of go through them. This was just Vincent, one of the founders. You know, they take this ferry. I wanted to show that it's quite a remote location where they have to go to get to source the beans. These guys have to leave the city, leave Ho Chi Minh City, a bustling city, head out into the countryside, out into the Delta, and every time they go out, it's an adventure. So this is them in their little Jeep. You know, again, you're trying to, these are tricky, but you always have your camera on. I'm talking, I'm interviewing. I'm not really interviewing for the story because the writer's already done that. And another thing, just to sort of interject here, interrupt myself, is like, this is kind of the thing in this world that some of you don't know too. Sometimes you work with a writer and you're on the shoot with them, and it can be kind of challenging to work directly with the writer because they're asking questions and they're like the subject is kind of engaged and involved, and it's hard to get natural shots. But sometimes it works well if you work with the right writer and you guys have, you know, formed like a nice little rapport, and you kind of know when to step in and they know when to step in and stuff like that. This writer in particular, I found out later that he just doesn't like photographers in general, so he didn't want to work with a writer. He didn't know me personally, but maybe he would have liked me personally if he ever met me, because who doesn't like a guy in a camel cashmere cardigan with rhino tattoos? But it was funny. They were very much like, yeah, he really didn't like photographers and didn't want to work with them. Okay, fine. Everyone has a bad experience. I've had bad experience with writers too, so take that. So anyway, it was more fun for me at the time. Again, if I'm being honest, I prefer to work alone in these situations. There's probably one or two writers. One of them was my mentor at the New York Times that I was more excited to work with someone than work solo, and that was a rarity though. But he was great because he really knew his stuff, and his dad was a famous photographer for Life magazine, so he kind of taught me a lot. So he was different. So this was just them sort of on their adventure here. Again, everything's going to be shot with the 24. I wanted to shoot here. I shot with an aperture. I often shoot wide open, but here I kind of wanted to show the cacao fields, show where we're driving into. I didn't want that completely blurred, so I shot at aperture of f10, which was tough to balance this indoor-outdoor light thing. You can see this is the little logo here. They had like a little metal logo made and drilled it into their custom Jeep there. It's not a Jeep, I shouldn't say that, someone's gonna like yell at me, but I wanted to show again the bustle of the city, them walking around, so different pictures of just the two of them naturally on the strip. So I basically said, like, I'm gonna sit in the back of the car, take the trip as you normally would, and I'm just gonna shoot you along the way. And sometimes I did portraits. Once we got to the actual cacao processing area, or the cacao growing area where they sort it all out, I was just like, okay, let me just document. Are these coming up big when I pull them big? I hope so. Yeah, they are. And I just basically, I give myself time. That's the thing I see a lot of photographers make, assignment photographers, no matter what they're making or how big the story is, you know, big or small for me, or I still put as much time as that I can. You know, if they pay me for a day, I give them an honest day. And sometimes they pay me for a day and I'll take 2 days if I want to get the story right, especially early on in my career where I was even more hungry, I guess, than I am now. I like to think I'm still hungry, but, you know, because I just always look at it like, hey, someone else is going to get this work, and one of the ways that I can do it better is to be there longer, wait for more opportunities to present themselves. So a lot of times they might think like, okay, you'll go out there, we'll stay for an hour and shoot and leave. I'm like, no, can I just stay for the day and we drive back in bad light? Like, I will shape my entire day around light. Like, when can I shoot and just get the most out of it and almost exhaust the scene to like death, like until I just like, there's nothing else I could possibly shoot from underneath, from above, from the side, in different light, all that. So they thought like maybe we could get it all done in like one day, but I thought, let's just spend a full day out there. Let's get out there as early as possible so we get that magical light in the morning, as much sunset light, come back. Again, I forget if we came back the next day or stayed overnight, can't remember. And then the next day in the factory, same thing. Like a lot of photographers, they would say this. They didn't say this in particular, but I get people say this to me all the time. Like, okay, so what do you need? Like 30 minutes or an hour? I'm like, actually, can I just stay here for the day, like a regular work day? Like they don't pay great. New York Times pays $250 a day. I think the Style magazine might have paid $400 a day or $500. I can't remember, but a lot of magazines pay that, and they haven't really changed. And it's kind of sad. Like that rate hasn't really changed in 30 years, which is crazy when you think about it. You think about people getting raises and prices going up and inflation. So it's kind of shitty, but I'm also like got out of that industry. I mean, I still dabble in it, but I got out at the right time, I think. But again, anything I do, commercial photography, big assignment, low paying assignment, not as sexy as an assignment, but this was sexy and a good magazine, but not paid well. I'm still gonna give it my all because you just never know. And what I mean by that is you never know is like, one, pride in your work, but two, also like I sold these images to them later on. They used them for a lot of stuff. I also gave them some images to use for printing, and then later on for their like cafe and for their own personal use. And then like just little things later on, like they used some of these images at Sam's memorial when he passed away, like that kind of stuff you don't think of, but just having a nice photograph of that person and nice memories for people. Like people forget that about photography. That's kind of the beauty. We're telling stories, and these stories are gonna live when people pass on, and like their kids can see these images and get a little insight into that part of their life, or even the co-founder as a friend, just a nice reminder. And people see these images at the memorial, it's nice to be a part of that. And then from a business side, yeah, you never know when these images are going to sell. I've sold these as stock images throughout my career through different stock agencies I've worked with, and I've made probably a lot more than I did from the actual assignment. So it just always pays to work harder, to stay there longer, and to just put your best effort in. So again, this is just like working the scene to exhaustion, right? These guys, there's not a lot going on. They're sorting the beans. It's thinking like, okay, frame just the hands in there. I'm giving different variety, even though I know what I like. But I'm a new editor, so hands in the center, hands just cut off. That's kind of a signature thing that I do often. I just like to have the hands small in the shot. Whenever I'm doing like farm stories, it's kind of one of my go-to shots. A lot of shots, like I'm sure I've been influenced by other people, but I've also found some of these images, like I've influenced a lot of other photographers in these situations. So I'm always like, once I see my images, other people being influenced by them using too much, it's good for me. I used to be bitter about it, and still sometimes I get a little bit, but often I use it as motivation to push myself to do something different. I played around with some slower shutter stuff here with the hands moving a little bit there, getting down below. People appreciate this too, seeing you get on the ground, getting dirty, trying different perspective. Like I didn't think this worked great, but it's not bad. I still like the other shot better. This with a little sun flare in there worked a little bit better. This one maybe a little better. This without the hands could work as a little detail shot, but I still like the hands better. But you can see, like I'm really working this scene. This is all just one scene. And this is the farmer here that they buy from, just going through it, trying it out. Okay, so I shot from above, I shot from the side, I shot from below. You tell me what you think works the best. I think working from the top down, I think as a detail shot, some of these worked really well. God, they look back and say, oh, that was my backup camera, Canon 60. I remember it being light. Still super sharp with that lens, with that. And I had 100. That must have been my 100 macro. Yeah, so I busted out my macro for the shoot. I forgot I had that. So that time I probably was using my 24, my 35, and my 100 macro. I'll take it if it's like a food-related story. I'll take the macro shot, the macro lens with me. Someone said hi. It looks like Val said hi, or V-A-I. Hi, hello, Val. But again, just working this to exhaustion, like trying every single thing I can with the beans while they're in good light. And then the cacao themselves are really like the cacao pods. They're these great, colorful things. So I'm like, oh, once I saw that, I worked that. I'm telling these guys, like, or asking these guys, like, can I see every step of the process? Because I don't want to miss anything. And what they think is beautiful, I might not think is beautiful. Or what I think is beautiful, they might not. So you just, did I say that right? But you just never know. So just to ask to see everything, to be detailed and do your homework, but also just to like, okay, what happens back there? Oh, what do those look like? Or what do the discarded shells look like? They might say like, well, you don't want to see that, they're ugly, but I might find them pretty, or I might be able to make a photograph that I think fits the story well. So don't let your subjects do the thinking for you when you do an assignment. Like do the thinking yourself and just try and experiment. That's what I do. I feel like that's why I did better as an assignment photographer than most of my peers, not because I was more talented or had more experience, but I just worked it harder. I saw friends that I knew, like if we, all things considered, we both shot for an hour, we'd probably get similar stuff, but I would shoot for 3 hours and 4 hours. And then that became the experience that I needed, that in 1 hour I could get better shots, but I still shot 3 hours. I hope that makes sense. But here, I started doing this a lot with my shadows, getting very shadowy in my shots. I would say I was influenced heavily by James Noctway. I'm not afraid to admit that, but I like to put my own twist on things and frame things my own way, but definitely learned some things from him and his creative compositions and the way that he, told stories of everyday life in a more interesting way with interesting shadows and composition, and making light the most important part of my images that, like building the story. Because, the everyday, that's what I had to photograph. All these assignments were just everyday things happening, farming, city life, economic stories, things like that. All right, let me get back down here. You can see these colorful, again, same scene, but working it. Okay, this is the guy sort of reaching for them. This is him standing over them. This is the pods themselves. I don't know if the editor's going to be into something like that moody. I am. I dig that. That might be like what they like. So I like to give a variety. I like to show off my versatility as a photographer too, showcase what I can do, show that I'm working hard. Another thing I'll say too, and I'll probably repeat this in every episode, is like, if you're an assignment photographer, editors do look at your metadata. They'll see like, oh man, he was shooting at 5 a.m. and then he was still shooting at 7 p.m. So he works hard. Let me hire him again. And I've had people say that to me. So you can see each of these scenes working it, trying to find the best shot. When I'm on the ferry, working it. When they're in the van, working it. I'm not just sitting there yapping away. Like I am yapping, talking to them. I'm not being like that creepy, but I'm also just thinking in pictures. I actually have a hard time multitasking. A lot of times they'll tell me information about themselves and the company, and I might make like a quick note and be like, ask about that later, because I wasn't paying attention because my mind was so focused on the shots. So, that was a lot of shots from the countryside. This is sort of Sam, they're checking, investigating the beans. I thought this was really cool that he had this like bean thing that I can't remember if that was used to like measure them or that was used to split them and open them up and look at them. I find all these little things fascinating to me. Asking good questions, just like a writer's going to do, but a photographer, it's the same thing. Asking good questions leads to more interesting shots, leads to doors opening up. I think they end up running this shot here. This is Sam just kind of showing me, or this one with the light sort of pouring through. Again, working. Like I could have settled for this, but I'm like, oh, let me move it a bit. Let me play around with that sun flare coming through. Let me make every single shot, even the detail shots. Let me try to make those interesting. Again, your job as a photographer is to bring these stories to life with a nice variety. Because I know this is going to be a big layout. I know I'm also going to have a slideshow, so I just want as much variety as possible. Again, trying to show off my skills. This is like the inside of the beans. I thought this was interesting. Again, being prepared. I wasn't prepared telling you what lenses I had, but I was prepared with having the right lens. I had my 100 macro to get these shots of the beans, which really came in handy. Just missed the focus on that one, as you can see. See on my big screen now, I missed it. That one, I nailed it. That one, I just missed it. I think I didn't send all these, but I don't typically send any photographs that aren't completely sharp. Or I'll never send a version that, I might send like a few that if it's just out of focus, but I think it's let me rephrase that. If I send it quick on a deadline, maybe I'll send something that's not sharp, but I've always got one that's definitely sharp in there as well. If it's just slightly off, I don't like that either, though, but usually I've got all my shots sharp. That's their Jeep I was talking about, or there's a name for it. Again, kills me that I can't remember it, but they were really fascinated with it. So, this is just, you want to give a story about their everyday life. This is them having lunch with one of the farmers they buy from. I want to show their relationship, because they do have this great relationship with the farmers they buy from. They really do believe in buying local and, treating the locals well, and they believe in sustainability. And I don't know, I just really... I was really into what they were doing. I really want to showcase what they're doing. Sometimes take some time and do some portraits. So we'd stop along the way. This is another thing as a photographer. It's easy to get lazy. It's easy to get caught up in it and just eat chocolate and talk to these cool guys doing cool stuff. But again, my mind isn't there. Afterwards, I can have a beer with them when the assignment's done, or have a piece of chocolate with them. But in the meantime, I'm always thinking, always looking. Okay, we're driving. Can we stop here for a minute? Like this might have been like a piss break or something like that. And I'm like, hey, let me just get a quick portrait of you guys. It's not great light. It was, what time here? 12 in the afternoon. So not great light, but it still worked out well. So yeah, you see the details of the beans. You see the journey there and back. You see we had some problems with the car. I think this is just being there. Sometimes just being there. Oh man, I shot with a wide angle lens there. I must have also had a wide angle lens on that shoot. Early on in my career, there was a time between early on where I shot with all fixed lenses. Then for a couple assignments, I think I used a zoom for a little bit. And then I went back to all my primes again. Just little shots like this too. Mix it up. This was silhouette on the way back at sunset. It looks like 6 p.m. Back across the ferry. That beautiful light, the Mekong River. Them tasting, them trying, showing the inside of the cacao. I mean, it was just fascinating to be around and see these colorful, see how they sample it, see how they test it, learn about the process. Again, I'm kind of learning on the fly, but I'm not letting it process on the fly because I'm just looking for pictures. Like, oh, what if we go over there? Oh, what are these trees like? So I think these are the portraits I end up liking a lot, like in the cacao fields with this sort of dappled light in there. I took individual portraits of them. Even if the story's about two people, I might take individual portraits of the two people just to, as a little gift to them for later on they might like. If I see good light. I like photography, I like taking pictures, so it's not like extra work for me. I just look at it like, oh, this is a cool way for me to share what I do as they share what they do, and they're giving me their time to tell this story. A lot of times photographers feel entitled, like everyone wants a story out. I mean, for them, yeah, it was great exposure, but they had a million stories about them. I mean, this was a pretty prestigious one, but I never assume, and I always just want to give back something too because they're giving me their time. And then even if we didn't use these shots of one of the farmers, it's a nice gift for them because he gave us his time, let us into his world, and showed me around. It was super pleasant, so took some portraits of him as well. Who knows if they didn't use him for the story, but use him to give to this gentleman here, for him to give us his time. And then back to the factory. Sorry, guys, I won't take too much longer here. Back to the factory here in Ho Chi Minh City. Got up the next day. Again, I went in to work with them. Like, what time you guys go in? Can I go in with you? So I took a taxi there, got in super early, right when they opened, and just got after it. What can I find? Where's the light? Early morning, I know the light's great. Again, a lot of people stay there for an hour and leave because it's a small room. They're bigger operation now, I would assume, just because they feel like they've grown so much. But and now I'd include the cafes in this story, but that wasn't part of their business then. But just seeing how things flow in the morning. Portraits of the workers there, different angles, different attempts for different things, trying different portraits. Whenever I've got free time, I'm not eating chocolate, although I look like I am. I'm working it. Where's the light hit the chocolate bars? Okay, that looks cool. Let me go investigate that. Their logo, they won a lot of awards for the ad company did all their logo and their branding, which was quite fascinating with the gold foil and colorful cases, wrapping and things like that. So I played around with that. Again, even these are just simple detail shots. Most people might just take, the simple shot and move on. I'm putting it in good light and I'm working it. I don't want to make an excuse of, oh, it's not a good opportunity for a shot. I look at shots that I need to get. How can I tell the story and how can I enhance that shot? Even if it's not great, even if it's something as simple as a bar of chocolate. Stack them up, move them around, put them in good light, get up close, pull back, layers, things like that. Show the details. Show the chocolate. And then afterwards, New York Times is very interesting, so I can't take any gifts over $20, so I could try one chocolate bar, which is $5, and then I had to buy some other ones to do it, but that's their policy. I like their policy. I thought it's a smart one, just so you're not influenced by people whenever you do stories. It was tricky and uncomfortable in some situations, but that's their policy, and I like that they, at least then, I don't work with them as much anymore. I felt that, it was ethical. Let's see what else I got here, guys. Scrolling down here, just more about the process. Like here, just to show you this one, like it didn't quite work out the way I wanted it with the slow shutter, but then tried it here, worked a little bit better. Not super sharp, but it was tough because I was doing like a 1/6 second shot here in low light. Just trying to show how it works, show the process, show everything about this place. So I'm going in every single room, I'm putting time in, and I'm stepping away, and I'm going back, and I'm revisiting, and then I'm looking for even just like, oh, okay, this light just hits the logo here. That's worth it for a shot. A lot of time, a lot of detail. That's what you're going to see in my work, and that's what I'm going to strive for. Every single part of the story, I want to be beautiful. I want it to be interesting, and I don't want any like layup shots or easy shots and just like, okay, let me just look at that and snap it. I don't. I think. I stop. I think. I'm thoughtful. I think again. I step away, step back, different lenses, move around, different light, move around, that kind of stuff. So that's the full story here. I'd love to hear your questions if you have any. I'm going to open it up to questions. But I'll just say that these guys were like kind of perfect, awesome story to do, right? They were great subject. They were great people. They were really passionate about what they do. I love people like this. They were really willing to. That helps. I mean, as a photographer, you're not always going to get willing subjects that going to do 300 portraits of them in one day. I didn't take that many, but some people are into it, and it's kind of your job as a photographer to sell them on being into it. And I'm very enthusiastic about my work. That's why I have a whole YouTube channel dedicated to it, because I love photography. So I think that comes through, and I think it, can be infectious on people and get them excited about it too. And again, takeaways here is it's just working the scenes, doing the planning ahead of time, and not settling for bad shots, even in tough situations. But I have to say, this was like kind of hit everything. The situations weren't that tough. I mean, it was pretty beautiful, pretty colorful, except maybe the factory wasn't like awesome to shoot. But I think I'm tooting my own horn here, but I think I did a good job getting the most out of, a room with bad light in it, using ambient light, moving things around to get, detail shots and things like that, and a nice variety. And my editor was quite happy in the end, and so were these guys. All right, questions. Oh, let's see. Do you own any photo books that you're very fond of? Oh my goodness, yes. Daniel, I own a lot of photo books. It'd be hard to go through all my photo books. I have like a shelf right there and a shelf downstairs, but I have so many. Salgado books. I have a lot of Magnum photography books. I would say if I'm going to recommend one just off the top of my head, I really like Minutes to Midnight by Trent Park. It's a great Magnum photographer. I love that book. I don't know if it's easy to find. James Noctway, quite depressing book, but Inferno. His books are awesome in the way he prints and the size of his books and how they're really depressing books to have around because he's always photographing depressing subjects. But James Noctway books are pretty epic to have, and I'm just always inspired by his work. I saw him talk when I was a young photographer, and I'm still impressed by his work to this day. Gregory chimed in here watching Tears Up. Thank you, Gregory. Gregory was a friend of Sam's who passed away, and rest in peace, Sam, and thank you. Gregory also is the one who asked me about the photograph and sent it over to him and told me a nice story, and it was just a nice reminder of why you work hard for photos. And it happens sometimes when I shot wedding photography. People are like, oh, my grandmother passed away. We used your photo and stuff like that, and it's a nice memory, and it just reminds you of why you take photographs, right? A lot of people do it, and the awards are nice, and the recognition's nice, and making money from it as a career is pretty cool. But, one of the things that I love is just telling stories and having an impact. And it's not always you don't have to just work for giant magazines and publications to do so. You can have an impact in all sorts of different ways. Just a nice memory of someone, after they passed away, someone can share and look and bring up nice memories or a pleasant time in someone's life. Or even people looking back, or kids that can look back at their parents and see what they did. I mean, it's nice to be a part of that. When I get those messages, it warms my heart as well. So thank you, Gregory, for reminding me about that, and thank you for asking me, and thank you for having my pictures as a part of his memorial. And let me pull up. Was the writing done by the time you took the photos? Yeah, pretty much. And let me show you. Here's kind of the story and what they chose. I have different opinions about. I don't have the layout here. I should have brought it up, but I think I have it on my website. If you go to justinmott.com, you can see in my tier sheets. I do like the spread they gave there. Online, I didn't really like the spread they gave. I like this photograph, but I think I had a better exposed shot there that they didn't choose. This little detail is nice, but a short article here. I'll put a link. There is a link in the description box already I put in there. But yeah, that was, the story had been written for the most part, so I'll get a brief about, not the full edit, it might be edited a little bit, but kind of the high points. Here's a rough draft, and that's what typically happens with most of my stories. If I'm with the writer, then it hasn't been written, but we're kind of working it out as we go. And if it's a good writer and good connection, they're giving me updates all right, yeah, I don't think it's going to go in this direction, it's going in that direction. Or, that photo works really well. I might try to sell them on is there a way to tie that in, or how do I tie that into the story where it's still honest and still makes sense and still fair? So these discussions are always being had. A lot of times in travel stories, though, they've got a rough draft out or the story's been done. I get it sent to me. Sometimes the editor, if they really trust you, what's your interpretation of this? If they a little more wary of you or just they haven't built up that trust with you, they might say get me X, Y, and Z. And then, you put your spin on it after that, but just make sure you get me X, Y, and Z, and you have to get that. And then sometimes it's somewhere in between, that kind of stuff. Hello, Carolyn. Good to hear from you. Wow. Greetings from Thailand. Well, greetings back to you from Vietnam. Wow. Great to hear from you. Let's see. This is a great question. Carolyn asked, do you put any of your outtakes on paid shoots in stock photos? Is that even possible? Yeah, so it's interesting. The way that my stock photos work is in the past when I did assignments, anything with the New York Times actually goes into the archive for Redux Pictures, which I'm also a member of. But even if you want, their archive is sold through Redux, or at least it used to be. So I'd get commissions on those sales, usually a 50-50 split. But those numbers are changing and those ratios are changing. What I try to do in the beginning of my career, I used to just give away everything to the magazine. And then once you do that, it's like you can't always give all of that to stock, or you can't always use it later. So now I just give I give a much tighter selection, and you could give like a variation of one of your shots to a stock company. Or I mean, it's tricky. Stock, I don't put too much stock in stock these days, so I don't really do that much anymore. These images, this story just became bigger, so you never know. It's just like the cave story I did in the episode I just released the other day about 3 of my most fascinating assignments. Check that assignment. Check out that episode. I thought that was kind of fun. I shared 3 of my more fascinating assignments. One of them was the earliest cave art, and those images kept selling. So like sometimes I'd say it's like 1 in 20 maybe, but you'll get like more money afterwards from your images than you did from the actual story, because it just became so popular. So there's different ways to maneuver that. You own the rights as a photographer, but the magazine can republish depending on your contract. But for that, I shot for the Smithsonian, and then the guys became quite famous, and I kept asking, like, all these publications just wanted free photos. I'm like, no, that's not really what I do. So if they want to buy the photos, come to me directly. And then the guy got sick of it. I mean, he was nice, and I respect that he knew to come to me and ask me, and he knew that a lot of people don't even know that. I just was actually yelling at someone the other day online about, hey, you shared my photos of like a rhino horn thing that's like kind of not supposed to be published, or the people's faces, and I don't know how it got out, and they stole them, and then someone else stole them from that magazine, and I had to like yell them and threaten them for them to take it down. They just plead ignorance. So when people know, it makes me feel good, but I hate that that's our standard. Anyway, long story long, but my point is that, I don't know what my point is. My point is that, you know, in that situation, I actually sold them to the guy directly. I'm like, okay, you can have them and then use them for your own website and own use. And if, you know, magazines come to you, you can use them. Because I knew all the magazines were like local magazines in the countries these guys were from. They never wanted to pay for anything. So it's just always annoying back and forth about, oh, you need to charge, oh, we'll give you credit. I'm like, I don't want credit. I want money for my images that I took. So I sold them as a flat rate to the guy because I thought that was a better deal for me at the time. And I think it was, because I didn't have to deal with the hassle anymore. Some of my images, if I think they're big, I think they're unique, they'll go through my archive, through Redux. Some of them I used to sell through Adobe stock, but it just felt so cheap. You know, I get like 10 cents for an image that I worked my butt off. And I'm like, I just didn't like it. So I removed all my images from Adobe stock. I sell assignment stuff or big stuff through Redux. And then I try. Now I have a connection of editors. So if I have a story like my rhino last Northern White Rhino story, I just pitch that individually by myself. I just find that when I do that, I know where the story's going. I have a bond with the editors. I've made these connections, and it takes time to get that. But you know, I just find it works better that way. I can kind of control what gets out there, and I get 100% of the profit too, which is nice because I work hard and I spend a lot of money to do these stories. Any more questions before I take off? All right, that's it for today, guys. If I missed anything, you can ask me in the comment section. If you didn't, again, catch this live, and you're watching this now, not live, you can ask me, and I'll go back and revisit. Again, guys, don't forget to check out my workshop. My Vietnam photography workshop, which would take place in the first week of March. So if you want to do it, you should book now. There's only a few slots left, and time's running out. To book your ticket, it's going to be It's going to be street photography, travel photography, Hanoi and Sapa, 7 days all inclusive, $3,100. You just have to pay for your flight here. We got your hotels. We got your food covered, and a lot of one-on-one time open to all levels. Episodes coming up. I'm going to be talking about these camera straps from Wotancraft. They're really cool. Got some camera bags. Got some regular travel bag stuff I want to talk about. A lot of cool stuff going on. And don't forget to check out my YouTube Shorts, my Instagram, stuff like that, where I'll be let you into my personal life and on all that kind of stuff. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you're not a member already, join so you can get more exclusive content. This isn't exclusive today, but I do a lot of these live talks that are for members only. So if you want that, $4.99 a month, and a lot of bonus content, a lot of discounts on things like that, and just a lot more me for only $4. And you support the channel, you support me doing this kind of stuff, which I like to do, and I want to do more of it in the future. So that's all for today, guys. Take it easy. Thank you for joining me, and have a good day.